All right, how we feeling, dude?
Feeling pretty good.
Feeling good? Feeling good?
I'm excited.
You excited?
A little bit, yeah.
All right, fuck, bro. Well, we'll hop right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ayoo Chill podcast. Today, you already know the business. I got a crazy guest for you. My boy, just take a couple of seconds, minutes, let the people know who you are.
What's up, guys? My name is Kyle Villareal. I'm a North Jersey-based mix engineer, recording engineer, producer. It's a little bit of an artist, too, sometimes. A songwriter. That's pretty much it.
Sick, dude. So,
in a nutshell.
Dude, I just kind of want to get into it. Tell me how you got started with music.
Like music in general? Or
just music in general.
The audio stuff. And in general, I was always doing concert band since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you really want to back up,
that's why we're here.
Recorder in third grade.
No, okay, recorder. Yeah.
That's where it would have started. Yeah, I was playing recorder, and I was like it was goofy as hell, but I was like, dude, this is kind of awesome.
Recorder was fun as shit when I was
it was the most exciting class by far.
Except painful for the ears, because if once you kind of level up in musicianship, you listen back and you're like, oh
yeah,
damn.
but you're so young and so green to it that it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
You've never made a noise on something in your life. Except maybe a bottle, which is awesome.
Did your teacher actually make you guys play any music, or was it kind of just blowing into the shit?
I think we did have Hot Cross Buns concerts.
Yeah, Hot Cross Buns.
It was probably that and maybe a Christmas song. I don't really remember, but
Hot Cross Bun hit though, back in the day.
It still hits.
Yeah,
I listened to it on the way here. Can't even lie,
bro. The remixes nowadays, bro, and it's royalty free, so anybody could use that, man. Use that as a sample.
The Jersey Club remix of Hot Cross Buns.
So, awesome. Bro, tell me, for example, so from recorder, what was the next step for you?
I moved on to flute in third or fourth grade or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my thing for, which is a weird instrument. Usually you wouldn't say oh, he played the flute, but I don't know. It is what it is. So I was doing that for all of grade school and middle school, and then through high school and shit too. I did marching band.
You were in marching band?
I did marching band, yeah.
Oh, dude, I love you so much more now. Not that I didn't love you before,
really?
But I'm just when people who go through marching band, we're just a certain breed of people.
It's dude, it's honestly torment. It was really fun at the time because, what else? There's nothing else music based in high school to do.
Mm-hmm.
So all my friends were doing it. I did it. We had a lot of fun, right?
You played the flute in marching band?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So but looking back on it, I would never do that again. I would never subject somebody to just walking in lines for 4 hours in the summer.
Yeah,
it's to each his own though.
I think you're right though. No, because I've thought about it. Have you ever heard of drum corps?
Yeah, it's hardcore marching band.
Yeah, hardcore marching band. You're talking about the top of the line level. These people take it seriously.
Scary marching band.
Yeah, dude. And I considered it at one point, and I even went out to do a test run for this one drum corps. I think they were the minor leagues of the drum corps. I don't know how the fuck this shit works, to be honest. But yeah, walking in the sun and marching and also playing, and you playing the flute, bro. That's tough, girl, because you really have to have your roll step down. I feel
I think so, yeah.
So you're just not when you're playing and shit.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
What high school you go to?
I was from Dumont High School.
Dumont, and is that the original town that you're from as well?
Been there,
so that's where you all grew up.
Almost 23 years, yeah.
Describe Dumont to me.
It's very small. Like I said, it's a mile across. It's all suburbs. There's nothing going on really. It's a good place to grow up, of course. There's a lot of great people, but just very just white bread, man. Just very very normal. There's there's one huge event every 10 years that'll shake up the town.
Yeah.
It's not even that big of an event, but everyone's yo.
What was the event?
Or it's a house will burn down, or someone will get killed, one person, and you're whoa,
dude. I thought you were talking about a concert event or something every 10 years.
No, there's some
crazy shit that goes down.
One event that normally happens most places, any city, this happens every day, and then happens there, and you're
damn,
your whole world is shaken up. But
how far is Dumont from the city?
Geographically, I can drive 15 minutes and get to the Palisades, the coast.
Word.
Transit time, I mean, to like Port is like at least an hour,
Damn.
especially with traffic.
Damn,
So it's
that's
like it's
rough.
really tucked up in there in that like top corner of Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of just like it's a little woodsy. But it's
Word.
nice.
So when did you so in high school you're still playing flute, you're playing you're doing marching band and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you did like concert band and all the rest of the whole nine.
Yeah. So like I did both. Yeah, once I got to somewhere in like middle school, I think it was like 6th grade or something. That's when I started playing piano. Go to high school freshman year, I took up guitar. So everything's starting to come together. Me and my best friends when we were like 15 sophomore year. That's when we made our first band together, and we're still like the best of homies.
That's
Shout out the boys. I hope they watch this.
What was the name of the first band?
It was called White Lotus.
White Lotus. Sick.
We to segue into probably what you're gonna ask further down the line, like when we were like 16, 17, 18,
Mm-hmm.
we started writing original music, and we made a record in our friend's basement.
That's sick.
And it sucked. I mean, like for the time, it was my first like introduction to the world of like making records and stuff. So for that, like I'm very grateful for it. In retrospect, though, like you get a lot older and you're like,
You look back and it's
You're
like,
like,
damn,
no.
like it didn't.
So we I'm pretty sure we purged that from Spotify recently. We didn't feel like paying for that anymore. So
yeah.
it's on our hard drive secretly somewhere.
You
I don't
know,
even know where.
It's always fun looking back at those songs, though. You know what I mean? To see where your mind was at, to see where you blossomed. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a good like stepping stone looking back. You know what I mean? It's like seeing those participation trophies that you get when you played sports when you were little, right?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, I didn't win, but you know, I played. So
I tried, man. I listened back to it like a couple months ago, like unironically, and it was like, okay,
okay.
it's all right. It's all right. You know.
You know, I was in high school. I was in a rock band, and funny enough, like I didn't sing rock or anything like that, but I had just started figuring out that I had a voice. So like these kids came up to me and they're like, "Yo, we need a singer," and I was like, "All right, cool." So we would go up into this girl's room. She's a guitarist, and we had two guitarists, and then like we always had a random drummer coming in and out. Like I feel like drummers are always the hardest to keep like, you know, like loyal to the band. I don't know. At least that's how I grew up.
I was
with
always
it.
fine, man.
Yeah.
We were tight. Yeah.
Damn.
Sorry about that.
No, it's
Sorry
cool.
that happened to you.
But like I remember we made this song and it was called Shouts of Victory, right? And that was the whole song. Like it was that lyric and it just like repeated throughout the whole song. I think there was like 4 guitar solos in between and just a standard like, you know, like bass drum, snare and hi-hat, you know. And so I look back at that. Thank God we never recorded that. There you cannot find that anywhere online because if you could I'd be fucking
I can find it.
But so that was your first experience with that band, like kind of getting into sound engineering then?
Yeah, like I mean, for me it was on the other side of the glass too. Like, but seeing how like a record is put together. I mean, granted, like did it in a basement, you know, with like really cheap stuff, you know, and
Yeah,
very
but who
limited stuff.
cares?
But
Who
just to
cares?
see like the process of like, oh, I now know like, oh, you're supposed to double guitars a lot of the times, or like doing doubles on vocals gives you this, or you know, just arrangement stuff like that too. And songwriting as a whole, as like an art form, there's just so much to learn from just trial and error and like listening to, you know, all our favorite bands and saying like, this is cool, let me try this again, and then you don't do it quite right, you get kind of close maybe. Doing that and just a lot of learning, a lot of growing.
Word. So how did this stem into like you knowing you want to become a sound engineer? When did you know like you were gonna be that?
Dude, I always ask myself this question because I can't remember the exact moment. All I do remember is like being a senior in high school and looking at schools and stuff. And so I must have been doing college tours or something, but somebody had pointed out that like, oh, you can do this for a job. You can like record stuff. You can mess with, you know, Pro Tools and stuff for a job. And so I said, okay, like let me try to go for that. And that's how I got to William Patterson. That's how I met you.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if y'all don't know, me and Kyle, we did go to school together. I know I didn't mention that in the beginning of the podcast, but you know, it's actually wild, you know, and it's cool to see like where you've come from to where you are now.
It's the same for
You know?
you, man. Yeah.
So how was it like going into William Patterson then? Like your first year, you know, like was it what you thought it was going to be? Because I sure didn't know I was going to be a sound engineer until like I think after my first year into college.
Yeah. For me, it was like, because you go in like freshman year in that program, and like you do nothing audio related. So that for me was tough because I was like, I knew I was like, you know what, yeah, this is what I want to do, and I just want to like full send it, and then to show up and it's like, all right, I have to go to like philosophy class and then like essay writing class for 6 hours and then drive home. I was like, what is this? You know, that was tough for me really. But like once I got deep enough to the point where it's like, oh, I'm actually in the studio and I'm actually like messing with these mics and these cables and these, you know, pieces of gear and stuff, that's when it clicked. It was like, yeah, okay. Like I'm in this ride, I'm strapped in the chair, I'm ready to go. Once it hit that point, like it felt pretty smooth sailing, really, you know.
Word. Did you always? So when did you? Because I started getting into like sound engineering, like I said, after my first year, and I didn't even know what an XLR cable was.
Right.
Like how beginner I was. Right. How did it feel like going into the program and seeing those live rooms? Because for the people who are listening, William Patterson has a pretty dope facility for sound engineers.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a SSL, like duality SSL, right? You got 2 live rooms. Well, actually, like vocal booth, live room 1,
Yeah,
live room
and
B.
they got like, I mean, you might have been gone at this point, but I think my last year there, they hooked up the concert band room too to the patch points.
Oh shit!
So,
Yeah.
or well, also the recital hall too was also connected as well. So I used that a lot too. So really had like you had like 3 or 4 going on there.
That you
By the
could
time
do
I
and
was
just
done, which was
experiment
like, yeah, that's a lot of different spaces to use. And for like same thing like Louise is saying, like for a North Jersey like audio school, Willie P was like, it's like really accessible. It's really cheap. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa. Like going into the studio for the first time, like being a senior in high school, that's like the gears started turning. I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like this is real. It's not like real, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, for going from like a basement with that stuff to that in a couple months, I was like, my mind was blown, you know?
So, what were your parents' reactions? Were they always supportive of like your music ambitions?
Yeah, they've always loved it really, especially like when I used to gig a lot with the old band, right? Like my dad is always the roadie for it. He loves just like packing the car really tight with
Sick,
everything and
sick.
you know, turning up to the gig and, you know, setting up and stuff. And they always like to come to the shows and stuff. Yeah, I mean they've always been like pushing me to follow this thing, which I'm very grateful for.
Word. Do you have any other musicians in your family?
Right now, no. That's the other thing too, is like it's like an only me thing. My grandfather was like really musically talented too. It's like I don't know if it's genetic or I don't know how that stuff works.
Yeah,
but
I don't
like,
know how it works either.
But that might have been like where it came from. He's like the same way too. Like a lot of the stuff that I've learned is through ear. Like piano, I've taken lessons in the past and stuff, but like teaching myself piano when I was like a kid, I had like this really cheap Casio keyboard, and the keys would light up. You could like play back Hot Cross Buns, right?
Word.
And the keys would light up for you, and I didn't know how to read sheet music for piano at all, so I would just like play the song back, and watch the keys light up, and just follow it, just note by note for like days to figure it out. And I guess by doing that a lot, my ear improves. I hope so.
Yeah.
Same with like guitar, like just like listening back to songs I liked. And if there wasn't like tabs online or like a YouTube tutorial on like how to play it, I just like, well, I have to do this. So I'm going to stare at the screen and like watch them do it and figure it out myself. But he was like, my grandfather was the same way. I think he could just pick up a lot of stuff and be like, oh, let's figure it out.
Yeah, some people are mad good with that. I remember growing up, there was this one kid I had in my high school who like he just saw something, heard something, and immediately could just like kill it on the guitar, man. He would be sick. He heard something on piano, immediately could like play it like back to back. And like seeing those type of people and like being surrounded by that, especially when you're going into this industry, could sometimes be like so intimidating, but also just like blow your mind being like, oh, this is what like people talk about when people are like seriously like naturally musically gifted or just like talented in like different levels. What's your kind of inspiration for like, what you do? Is there anybody who you look up to that kind of made you fall in love with the field?
Ooh, I feel like this is like a polarizing answer, I feel like. But when I was like starting college and stuff, like 2017, I was like listening to a lot of Jack Antonoff stuff, which like a lot of people don't like him, and I'm starting to see both sides of the coin. But the stuff he was doing, like in that era as like an engineer and a producer. Like he was, the band Bleachers, that stuff.
I do not.
It's like his solo work, and like I found their second record that year, which was like that was a huge milestone for me in like arranging and production and just this like sonically the sound of it I fell in love with. So the kind of stuff that he was doing, I was like, I want to like get to that point and do that kind of stuff. I mean, like from there at this point, it's branched out to like a lot of mix engineers. Now that I'm like getting more like hyper focused on specifically that, there's a lot of like their work that I look up to, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think that's sick. So, I always saw you in Willie P, especially going around being like so experimental. You have your own type of vibe. Your style of music too is just like it's kind of sick.
Yeah.
Like I think it's different. Can you describe like some, I guess, artists or musicians that best describe the kind of vibe that you like, you give out?
Like musically or my energy.
I guess a little bit of both.
Dude, I guess like musically it's been weird because back when like we were in school and stuff, yeah, I would write a lot of stuff. And then that's tapered off a lot. Just as like I've gotten older, I've gotten more focused on doing this type of thing, right? I look at it this way, like there's 24 hours in a day, and I want to be really good at being an engineer. Not necessarily at being a solo artist. It's fun, right? There's a lot of fulfillment in that, but it's not my main thing. So I used to do back in like I'd see you a lot. It was a lot of indie pop, like alternative stuff, which then started branching out into. I had like a weird hyper pop phase in like 2020.
Yeah.
Everything just went wrong, and I was like, well, let me listen to like the most insane music ever. I was trying to do that for a while, and it didn't quite stick. So if I'm like trying to write stuff now, it goes back to more like guitar based music. I'm getting back into a lot of that stuff, like Britpop stuff. Yeah.
So talk to me about that. I think this is an interesting topic because, for example, I remember shout out Dave Kersner because he's the GOAT.
Shout out Dave.
Love
Miss you,
Dave.
man.
I remember the first time that I wanted to get into the program, I was describing him like what I want to do, and I was like, and when I was starting the program, like I was trying to make music, but also record people. I wanted to be a sound engineer, and he suggested to go into the pop program, right? Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to go into the pop program. Like it's not my gig. But I think a lot of more sound engineers now more than ever. Like I feel like you look at the old heads of sound engineers and they knew that they wanted to do sound engineering from like day one, right? But now you look at the vast variety of like people who are doing it today, and it's like a lot of sound engineers, they have a singing background, or they used to play drums, or they were big musicians, and part of a band, and it's hard to kind of look at it and be like, whoa, am I going to stop pursuing this to like now become a better sound engineer, or do I do it half and half? Like how is that kind of shift for you? Do you feel like you're kind of just giving up on like, like a solo career, or you kind of just like, hey, this is what I'm more passionate about now and I'm just going to keep going, or anything else?
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything by doing that because I wake up in the morning and I say, okay, this is what I have to do to be happy. Mm-hmm. And I maybe I didn't know it this whole time, but one day I figured it out and I said, okay, well, let me just chase that. I can throw away some of being an artist because like I realized I don't find it as rewarding, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And like also too though, with like you're saying like the older folks are so like set on it. I mean, you got to think too, like going back 40 years, this type of job was so like very, very much more gatekept than it is now. Mm-hmm. And like really, really niche. Like you couldn't just go read a book on how to do it and then just be good at recording, making records. That's something like you had to apprentice for. And you have to be lucky enough to just get your foot in the door, right? So nowadays, where it's like so much more accessible, where a lot of people are just doing it from their rooms. So am I. Like that's how I got here too. But there's so many more people doing that really specific thing that was like it was harder to get to, and you could really live off it back then. It was like a lot more of a trade to sit there at a tape machine and edit stuff and then fuck it up and then have to do it again, and clean it and stuff. but yeah, like splitting yourself up between like being an engineer, being a producer, being a singer, teaching lessons, doing all this stuff. Like you need more sources of income now. I feel like you have to be good at a lot more things to really make it. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely feel that. And I think that, you know, switching the mindset and really finding out what makes you like tick and what makes you happy and what you wake up in the morning being like, I'm gonna do this shit, is like really the best way to go about it. Because I mean, like, obviously, like, I mean, we went to the same school, same program. We're doing completely different shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Completely different. And I think it's also kind of finding, you know, where your talents are kind of best suited. You know, like I felt like your mind was always very fucking creative, you know, and especially just seeing you in the studio and like you work on stuff, like you could see when gears are just moving in people's heads, you know?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, when I was in the studio, gears were moving, but they were fucking crunching. You know what I mean? I was like, how does this shit fucking work? I was like, and you know, I still have a big love for engineering and mixing, but it's just like at a certain point, I was just like, yo, I don't wake up every day and be like, yo, I want to mix this song. I definitely see a future with it, you know? Or like releasing a project one day. Hopefully, like I'll work on somebody's album and I could, you know, co-mix or co-produce it. But it's just like I like talking to people, and I feel like my personality is a big trait that I have that helps me move forward in a lot of things, you know. So I think I was just like, fuck it, I'll just kind of get into this and see where it goes, you know. But I respect the fuck out of it because it's hard. It's hard sometimes because when people look at it, like, do you ever get people who are like, yo, like, when are you coming out with the next record, or when are you coming out with the next song?
Dude, all the time. And
Yeah.
I like for like 2 years now, I have to keep breaking their hearts and be like, I don't know. I'm like not even started on it, and they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just not. It's not something that comes as natural anymore because like I feel like the way my brain works has shifted so much in the past 2 years. Like really just trying to like hone in on this one thing, which I mean could be good, could be bad. It depends on how you look at it, really. You know.
What are you doing today? Like, for example, like what was the shift like now coming out of like college and what you're doing today?
Coming out of college, it was like a lot of like searching for jobs and then
Searching for jobs like
studio stuff.
studio
You know,
stuff?
like trying to get in the door somewhere. Which like I got in. Like I graduated last May. A month later, that's when Shane hit me up to come back to architect.
Word.
So in one regard, yeah, I kind of achieved that to some extent. And unfortunately, like the studio was closing in December, so I knew it was like a limited run. But for the time, like you had to go for it. You know,
Word.
it was like the right environment to be in at that time, and like I value that decision from the stuff, even in just 6 months, like the stuff I learned there that made me get better at what I do. But overall, like the past year really has been a lot of freelancing and just like going to the grindstone and trying to make it work. And you know, sometimes yeah, it works pretty well. Other times, like you just kind of eat shit. That's what it is, man.
So I feel like when you're getting into sound engineering and you're first doing stuff, obviously I feel like the first big project that the program made us do was obviously like our senior like album. You have to write a whole thing. Do you feel like that was like your first big project that you released that you were like, yo, this is sick? Or did you work on anything else before that?
Well, I'd been like even when I was writing music in like 2018, 2019, like I put out an EP back then. So like it wasn't my first time like doing like a record. I know it's not like a full record, but something that's more than a song, right? So I had been down that path before, thankfully, which that gave me a lot of insight into like getting a record done. So if I had tried this stuff the first time on my senior project, the mistakes I had made, you know, 2 years prior would have manifested then, which like thank God they didn't. So, but I mean, the project came out very good. Like I had a blast making it. I'm very happy with just like having spent the time there with those people and making that art. Yeah, but it went good, man.
Can you describe what it's like to work with like other artists in the studio, or even like, actually scratch that, can you describe the process of even getting like a project together from start to finish?
Yeah, well, it obviously depends a lot. It's very different, client by client, project by project. Then like an interesting thing too is like when you're bringing somebody into the studio, which I think you understand this too, just like doing a podcast with people and a lot of people, is that just everybody is so different. The way they act is so different. What they find fun is so different, and you kind of need to be malleable in the way you're interacting with them in like especially in a creative environment. So if you're in the studio with somebody and that energy's not there, you're just gonna be in a wet blanket. Then they're gonna have a miserable time. They're not gonna make good art. You're gonna hate it, you know. So, what was the original question? I just got so off track.
My original question being like, how does the process work from start to finish when you're recording a record?
Okay, right. So I tend to start with like, well, the first question is like, if it's somebody new or even if it's somebody not new, but they just want to make a new project, like, where are you at in the demos stage? Do you have something recorded in even just GarageBand or Audacity, just something bare bones to work with? Is it just a song that you've written on your guitar that you can perform for me, but you have like a voice note or something? Do you want to lock it to a tempo? Do you want it to be free form? If it needs to be to a tempo, is your voice note recording locked to a tempo? A lot of stuff like that just to get just like the pre-production down. And because like, it's very important, like you don't want to go into a studio not knowing creatively what your song is supposed to be, because you're going to get in there, you're going to be confused. Engineer might be a little bit confused too. Producer won't know what's going on, and you're just going to waste time, you know? It's so much more efficient to go in, you know, working out all those kinks in pre-production and just going in and knowing what your art needs to be and just nailing it, right? You just get out and you're done. So I try to work through a lot of those questions from the get-go, just for the sake of like, my client is paying for my time. Like, I don't want to waste their time. And if I know what the end goal needs to be, then nobody's time is wasted, and we just get there immediately, which is great. After that, like, there's usually some sort of recording phase. Well, that can like depend too, of course. Like, we're talking about, is it a full band arrangement? What is going on? A lot of stuff nowadays is just like, I have a multi-track in Ableton, or my producer made this in Logic, and I just gotta put vocals on it, which that's cool too. Go in, cut vocals, mix, master, boom, easy.
And do you record right now, like people at your house, or is
I
that
do,
like your main gig, or do you have like somewhere that you go to record?
I'll do small stuff at my house, like I can cut vocals there, or like guitars. I've like worked out a way. I was very lucky this past year, where my sister went away to college for the first time, so her bedroom is directly across the hall from mine. So for like 8 months, I had a free ISO booth. It was incredible. I was running these like 25-foot cables under the doors. I was reamping guitars like when no one was home, just cranking it, you know, like crazy. It was awesome. But a lot of the stuff I do at this little space down in Woodridge, New Jersey, called Big and Tall Recording.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this like these two guys, Gabe and Tommy. They're the coolest. You should work with them because they're fantastic engineers. And I'm lucky enough to have them let me rent out time there, so I can get my stuff done. They get paid, I get paid. It's fantastic. It's a great like, it's a great middle space between like doing stuff at your house, which can be very like amateur sounding. The energy's like not quite there, and like a large big budget studio that like a lot of indie artists just they don't have the budget for it. It's the perfect middle ground of, you know. And it feels like home too. It looks like a giant living room, so cozy. So that's where I've been working out of since like last November. It's awesome, man.
Word. So how do you? I'm interested in like how the cost of, you know, being an engineer and making it work financially, like how that goes into everything, because like you have to. I was actually having a conversation the other day with this guy named Michael Harrison. He runs his own media kind of production company, and he was talking about, you know, setting the values at where you're at, you know, like, and I think it's a little bit difficult for It's two different worlds because like when it comes to a camera, you know what I mean? Like you could buy like the nicest camera ever, right? But and then as long as you have the money, like your level goes like crazy up. But it's actually about using it and like getting comfortable with your clients, you know,
Yeah.
to then set a price that's livable. Like how do you work out like your prices? I mean, like you don't have to share like how much you charge, but like, you know, how do you even set that, and has it grown since the beginning of what you have charged?
Yeah, it I mean, I just like going into it last year, I just looked at what I was making like at the jobs I was working during college, and I just took it up from there. I said, at what number, what's the lowest number that I still feel like fulfilled in what I do? I feel like it's worth it without, destroying people's bank accounts. Because like again, like a lot of the people around here, we're kind of all DIYing this ourselves. Me too. Like if I'm writing music, I don't really have a budget to go to, you know, this crazy studio out in New York or somewhere else. So that's how I did that. I like initially set a number from graduation that was like so low, and I was like, no, this is cool. Like I don't know what else to do, so let me just do this for a while. And I like quickly realized how much I was underselling myself when every single client was just like giving me more money than I asked for. And I was like, that's very nice of you. And I was like, what am I doing, man? Like,
I
so
feel that.
I fixed that. I was like, yeah, let me take care of this. Yeah, but also too, like budget wise, like I'm fortunate just because like I don't own a studio space. Like I mix and master out of my bedroom, so there's no rent cost there. Like I don't have to keep the lights on, that kind of stuff. It really just comes down to like commute to the studio or wherever I'm going to. Sometimes it's like remote stuff. Just like sometimes gear. I don't buy a lot of stuff just because I don't need a lot. I'm at like a point where most of the stuff I do is mixing, or even if it is recording, it's at Big and Tall, and they have the stuff there. So kind of just hands off it, right? Maybe like a plug in here and there, but it's like I said, it's at a point where like I have enough software to get my job done, and there's never really a huge desire to like I need to drop 400 on this plugin.
Yeah.
I'm also like kind of frugal like that.
Yeah, you know, I think it brings up a good point because I think what was really instilled into our heads, especially in the beginning of the sound engineering program at William Patterson, was that you don't need a lot to make something sound good, and that even the biggest people in the industry are sometimes even using the Pro Tools stock EQ, or the Pro Tools stock compressor. I mean, I still use the Pro Tools stock compressor like all the time, bro.
Shout out the
Even
stock
for
compressor,
hell
man.
yeah, bro. Like
Love 'em.
it's like like sometimes you could just as you move on and grow as a sound engineer, you realize different toys do different things. Actually, funny enough, I think we were talking about the sound toys decapitator,
Yeah.
and how like that is just like it's so versatile in what it can do. But then there's another one. Fuck. Oh man, I wish I could grab Shane right now because he was showing me this other one that does a similar thing to the decapitator, but it's just it has way less like things to kind of play around with and versatility. But the sounds,
Yeah.
to a sound engineer especially, you could just hear the difference between them.
Was it like the soft tube saturator?
It
Was it like
was.
a silver thing with one knob?
It wasn't. It was black, and I think it had a V on it. So I don't. I can't. I
We'll
can't
find out
remember.
later, I guess.
But it just has two like separate sounds, and one of them was just like very like it. You could just from hearing like it at bass and like where everything's just level on the plugin, like you're just like, wow, this is something different. And then like the adjustments to it are so small. You know what? Especially for the listeners, I feel like I've had sound engineers on here before, and I've never really talked about what the process of mixing is like. Unless you're a sound engineer listening to this, you don't even know what the fuck is going on. What is sound engineering?
Yeah, we're kind of just talking gibberish right now, but that's okay. I mean, like, well, sound engineering is gonna be a lot of things. You're talking specifically mixing? 'Cause, like,
I think in general, like, oh well, I mean, I guess you could do let's keep it small right now. What is sound engineering as a mixer?
as a mixer is, I will get either some multi-track for a song of kick drum, snare drum, hi hats, cymbals, bass, guitars, or anything, synthesizers, vocals, blah blah blah. So like my job from there is to not necessarily you don't want to go in and like, I need to put my thumbprint on this all the time, because you can get yourself in trouble with that sometimes. If like the source material is good, your job is to just bring it together, make it a little better. You're trying to elicit some sort of emotional response out of the listener, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? Music is not about how it sounds; it's about how it makes you feel. So,
no, I feel the fuck out of that, because it's like sometimes, you know, in sound engineering, they tell you a lot not to look at like the knob sometimes of what exactly you're doing when you're mixing. And I feel like the biggest way a person could feel that, or at least a sound engineer, is the difference between the mix when the mixing engineer is done with it, than when you go into the mastering for it. You
which
know what I mean?
that's a dark art, man. That's like two different things. That's two different brains. But
what's the difference between mixing and mastering then?
for me, you can put it a lot of ways, really. But I've heard it put this way: like mixing can be about balance. You want to balance all the elements in your track, right? Mastering is about feeling a little bit more so, and about translation. That being from, you want your master to translate between the most expensive studio speakers you can find to your iPhone, to your laptop, to your car, and you still want it to have that same impact, or get it as close as you can to feeling the way it did in the mastering studio. Whereas mixing, yeah, like that still applies. Mastering is like a very, you're finishing the product there in itself. You're finishing what everyone else who's touched that project before has started. You know?
No, yeah, no, I feel that. What is your mixing process like specifically?
It's always got to start with a lot of organization, because you'll get stems from people. Sometimes they're labeled nicely, sometimes they're not. A lot of the times, like, if you export from like Ableton a lot, you use Ableton at all? Or?
I don't really use Ableton that much, but
if you ever like exported a session from Ableton into audio, it asks you to like name what the bounce is going to be first. So you have to input some sort of character. So I'll make it like an exclamation point, and that goes as like a prefix in front of every track name. So you'll get like exclamation point kick, exclamation point snare, down the list. I haven't found a way to bypass this at all, and it's like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, because it'll come into, I mix in Pro Tools, so it'll come into Pro Tools, and just the naming's always weird on stuff, so I have to go through, I rename everything. Naming wise, I just do all caps, the most like bare bones word to get what the instrument is across.
Yeah,
like nothing like super weird space synth 9, you know, like just put synth 9 or something, you know. From there, it's just a lot of like, it's all like routing and stuff. So I'll do like drums first. I go from like the foundation down, actually, right? So be your drums, then your bass, then throw in guitars, synths, vocals always come last. Color code them, because I like looking at, it's fun to look at colors, man.
Yeah, no, it helps organize. Actually, my whole calendar is color coded.
It's beautiful. Well. There's a lot of like people who use Pro Tools and they mix on all gray faders, and it makes me scared. It makes me a little sad.
They're serial killers. If you mix on Pro Tools with gray, you're probably a serial killer.
The thing is that they're also really good at it, so I can't really say anything.
Nah, I'll rip them, bro. I listen. I'm not even like, what the fuck are you gonna do to me, bro? Like, I'm not. To be honest, I ain't shit as a mixer. So like,
you have no horse in that race. But I'm
take
not
it how
gonna,
you want.
I don't want to come at anyone's throats. I just think that coloring your tracks is very nice.
No, I think it's fire, dude. Like, why wouldn't you color your tracks? I think it's more organized. I don't know. I guess for me, like, my mind kind of works as like a little kid, you know what I mean? So when I see colors, it just helps me organize more stuff, and it just like helps me just like get to stuff quickly, you know what I mean? I can't judge though. I mean, like, some of the greatest in the game, you know, they all have their weird stuff on how they do certain stuff, you know, like I know like what is it? I know some people who use like the auto-tune.
Yeah.
Like the regular auto-tune on Tars auto-tune, they don't even use it for the auto-tune focus. That they'll bypass it in and out on just certain notes that the singer is singing, right? And they'll use it that way. And it's just like, sometimes I'll be looking at like different like engineering tricks like that, and it'll just amaze me because everybody has like their own kind of way to do stuff. But like I said, nothing's too secret now. I feel like today in the industries. I mean, like I know the old heads, like you were talking about before, gatekeeping and like keeping certain stuff secret. Like, do you feel like most of the stuff you've learned today is either through people telling you secretly, or you just learning through like trial and error, or just looking on YouTube videos?
It's almost entirely been first off trial and error firsthand of saying I want to do this, trying it, probably not doing it right, and then learning, okay, well, don't do that again because it wasn't right. Eventually, every time you do it, you get a little bit closer to your end goal, which is good. Other stuff, especially like socially, is just like working like at Architect with Shane. There's a lot of like etiquette of being an assistant in a studio or just being an intern too that like schools are never going to teach you. You just have to go out and do it.
Like what?
I remember one of the first things he ever told me was like, let's say you have a client come in, right? And they're showing you their demos or something, and it's like, well, this is my sound, like, right? Don't ever say like, oh, this is really cool, man. You sound like this artist, or you remind me of this. Because that is like 75-25 chance that like you're going to say an artist that they fucking hate and they don't want to sound like. And it just gets in their head. Their ego is like really weird. The energy's not there. And then when like time comes to perform, they're gonna mess up their performance because they're like, well, I don't want to sound like this guy. I don't want to do this or that, right? I used to get people would say all the time that I sing like Brendan Urie, which like I guess is kind of a compliment. Like he's a very technically good singer. I just hate the music he makes so much. So like every time I heard it, I was like, again, like, dude. And it's it's a bit of a bummer, man. If you ever told me that, it's okay. It's not personal, but just making a point here. So stuff like that is like, no matter how many hours you spend in that Willie P studio twisting knobs, you're never gonna make that mistake and learn from it unless you're like in a studio and you do it, or your boss tells you not to do it, right? Because they've been through the ringer.
So what's some advice you have for anybody who's taken on their first internship?
Just really like sit and listen, use your head. I would be wary of like jumping too deep into it at once and saying like, you don't want to come in and be like, hey, let me do this, let me do that, I can do this, I can do that. Just sit and be there to serve the session and the engineer and the client. That's, I think, most important between anything. Like, a lot of times it does help to be a bit of a fly on the wall. Some places are different, right? Like, at Architect, I definitely went in being a bit more cautious than normal just because of that. In the end, I mean, the environment there is, like, very friendly and very good. And in retrospect, it might have been okay had I pushed myself a little bit more. Respectfully, of course.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would say always be a little bit more cautious because the last thing you want to do in this industry is piss somebody off, because that's bad, man. Word of mouth goes such a long way. So just, try to be your best self and your most professional self with everybody you meet.
You know what? I feel that. And you know what? It's crazy because I've heard that a lot because, funny enough, I had a teacher once. I guess I'm not gonna name them, but he got really pissed off at me. And I remember the other teacher came in and was like, dude, what the hell did you do to like make this guy so pissed off? And I was like, I have no idea. And he was like, yo, you better apologize to him because this industry is mad small and word gets around and all this. And I'm just like, dude, like sometimes I feel, especially still in the sound engineering industry, like these egos for certain people are just so high, and I get the respect and all this. And trust me, at the end of the day, I'll always give the max respect that I need to anybody, not just because you're some like high and mighty person in the industry, but because like, you're a human being, you know what I mean? Outside, if I see you on the street and you're not in front of your mixing board, you're just like everybody else, you know what I mean? Like, and it's difficult because me personally, I have a rough time dealing with the ego shit. I was actually having a conversation with Nathaniel and we were talking about Nathaniel Hawkins. We were just having a conversation about internships,
Yeah.
and how you feel about being that person who's just like, listen, go get me a sandwich, go get me lunch, go get me this, and 2 months in, you're doing that shit, and you've proven yourself that you could do it, and you're still not at a level where like you could even like sit in on the session or do something like that. And I know some certain places like they'll really bug you out like that. Like, have you seen that side of like the industry at all, or have heard stories?
Personally, I haven't really seen it just because like I mean, like purposely stayed away from interning at like larger, older style studios for that reason. Becoming an architect, like, yeah, I did little stuff like that. I cleaned up.
Like,
I went on
yeah.
food runs. That's cool. But at the same time, like it was such a small community. I think I was interning there like June 2019 to February 2020. I think I might have been the only intern at the time. So there was plenty of opportunity for me to like, I mean, you're constantly sitting in on the session. It's just a control room, the one live room, and then like the recital area. So, being in that sort of like smaller, newer studio environment, that's what I liked a lot because I was immediately in there, getting experience there. I was watching Shane do stuff, and after a couple hours of like sitting there honing in on the computer screen and say like, okay, why did you do that? And he would explain, because this, that, right?
Yeah, Shim was great because he'll answer a lot of questions. It's like weird because I hear stuff from other like studios, and like I said, it's usually like the older head studios where I feel like, for lack of a better word, like hazing seems like, like
Yeah,
the kind of vibe that they give out. You know what I mean?
it's also it's like it's just due to like I think the mass of like interns as well. Like the more interns you have in a place in like a bigger name studio, like obviously the less hands-on stuff everyone's gonna do, at least for a while. I'm not an expert on this. Like I haven't really been there, but from like I do have friends that work at some bigger studios, and like asking them about what's going on there. It's like, yeah, I came here just like as an intern and I had to grind it out, because it's a bigger studio, it's older style, and it's just the way it is. And then, hopefully at some point you move up here, or someone's sick this day, so fill in, and then boom, there you go. Something like that. But yeah, it's two very different worlds. There's like a lot has changed in the past 20, 30 years, like in this industry. For better or for worse, I don't know.
So, what do you feel like as an engineer is the biggest do's and don'ts, like on a regular day-to-day basis?
Say like first off, well, your job is kind of like a service industry at some points, right?
Yeah.
Especially working in a room with a client there. Like I see that as like I'm there to serve them somehow, and whatever I can do to make them comfortable, make them have a good time, and make them leave with a good product or something, that's what I have to do. I don't care what my ego is. I don't care what I like to do. I don't care what I want to do. That's got to happen. So definitely do that. I would say you have to be good at communicating too. Don't brush people off. Don't just like ignore messages and stuff. That can be a do or don't depending on how you look at it, right? But yeah, so like don't shake that stuff off. Let's say what else?
What would you do if like someone's like really just having a rough time in the vocal booth and like just like is just not having a great session? Because it could get awkward because sometimes people are paying for a session and you're trying to help them and there just seems to be like no connect.
There's a couple things you can do, and I mean this happens a lot, especially like when you're not as used to being in a studio that often. Say you're like this is your first project coming out with, so all this stuff is like really new to you. You get in the booth, and exactly what we're doing right now is like getting real intimate with a microphone. We got headphones on. You're not used to hearing your voice like this. So you can sing all you want in your bedroom with your guitar, and you're used to that song sounding that way in those acoustics. Your voice, everybody's voice feels deeper when you're talking, just of the way that the bone conduction works in our heads and stuff. So when you hear it played back, you're always like, ooh. And we had this talk before we even started, like, about getting used to your own voice and stuff. It's the same thing as that. So you really have to cultivate a really like welcoming environment in the studio. You need to let that person know that like yeah, it's okay. It's weird to be in a box singing to nobody, you know, in a dark box probably. Um, and you need to like make it known that like you can be vulnerable here. That is okay. My job is not to sit here and laugh at you. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't ever do that. I'm here to help you achieve your dreams. Really, I want you to leave with a good piece of art that makes you happy and makes other people happy. So, yeah, I mean, like your job as a recording engineer, like you're always doing vocals. Almost every song has some sort of vocals. So you do have to become a vocal coach, and you need to learn how different types of people perform things or what their boundaries are and like what is hard for them. That's what you have to isolate and quickly on the spot too and figure it out. Um, so like I'm not the greatest expert in the world on like vocal coaching. It's something that I definitely want to look into more.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, had I like gone to school for like singing or something, had I taken lessons like you did, like I would know more technical stuff. I can do, you know, pitch wise. I can say like you got to bring the pitch up there. Like this
Mm-hmm.
note's not hitting because you don't realize it's flat, but it is. You know.
Have you ever had like any times in the studio where like, you know, like it's just like the vibes are really off? Like, have you ever had to end a session or anything like that?
No, I've never been like, dude, we gotta leave because I don't. That's like such a DefCon 1 moment that
Right.
like it looks terrible on me. I've had
Have you had rough studio sessions before?
yeah, the roughest I've had, and it's not even on like anything I did. I'm trying to think like how much I can really like say. One thing that's like kind of a bummer is like when people come in, they ask for studio time for you, and they come in, and then they start kind of like taking control themselves, and you become a bit of like, I'm just here to hit record, and they don't. It's a bummer when like they come in, they don't want you, they just want the gear, which I've run into once, and they got their stuff done, and I think they were happy with it, but I mean, my vibe was like not good that night. I was like, oh man, like I'm not gonna do this again. And that's another thing you have to learn too is like find where your boundaries are, and don't go back into that. You know, if you're gonna be put in a weird spot like that. But I mean, other than that, like there's never been a catastrophe. You know.
So, what should someone who is going into a session expect from their sound engineer?
I would say, like I said earlier, most of all, like, well, there's two ways to really do this. Sometimes the client wants you to be the fly on the wall, and sometimes they want you just to like set up the mics, make it sound good, hit record, don't say anything else. You know, when they really know, I think this happens a lot with like bigger name clients too. You know, once you get out there far enough, when they have the budget and they've been around the block for 20 years and they've made 6 records already and they know their sound. Sometimes they don't want the engineer to step on that, and that's cool. That's awesome, man. Other people hire you not only for the technical side and to record the stuff, but they want your input on the stuff too. They want like this is like something I help out with a lot is like I like helping people songwrite. Even in the studio, if there's like a part arrangement wise that like they're not super confident on or they're not sure about, like that's why I love to step in and be like, yeah, like let me take a crack at this. Like, what if we tried these notes instead or this run? I love that stuff because that's like I don't want to only be like the gear guy who's sitting there just like twisting stuff and is looking bored. No, like I'm there to make art too. The same reason you're there. So I take pride in like what I do as also being. I do like creatively helping out on stuff. But like I said, that's not everybody. And going into if you're working with somebody for the first time, that's something to be very cautious about too. You have to ask, like, do you want me to, put input on this, or do I have to sit back? That's yeah.
I think this next question kind of plays parallel to that, and I could imagine has a similar answer. But like, what makes a great sound engineer then?
I think overall, you just gotta make good art. That's the number one thing. If you're like, and that'll tie back into like the gear thing we're talking about. If you're making incredible art on a $200 Focusrite and like an SM58, you're a really good engineer, man. That's the biggest of all. But yeah, so I mean, do good stuff. Be very sociable. You need to be good to be around, because it doesn't matter how good your art is too. If people don't want to work with you, it doesn't matter. So be friendly, man.
I think it's worth asking because I feel like as sound engineers we kind of forget once we get all of our gear and once we get kind of comfortable in what we're doing, and you don't realize. It's funny. I've always said sound engineers are some of the richest poor people I've ever met in my life because like you take all of our gear together. I mean, like how old are you now?
I'm almost 23.
Yeah, like I'm 24, dude. Like I add up all my gear together. I'm like, oh shit. Like I got
Yeah,
I got some
you
fucking
like don't realize how much it's added up.
yeah,
And you're
because like
oh,
over the
shit.
years, you're adding stuff, But if you could go back to you when you were first buying gear, like let's have a regional budget. Like let's say around like I don't even know what reasonable is actually for a high schooler because I feel like that's probably where
High
you would
school,
start,
I
right?
mean,
Maybe like a
I feel like everybody pretty much starts at the same place
Mhm.
nowadays, where it's like you get the Scarlet,
Mhm.
you get like KRK rockets or like whatever those JBLs are, or Yamaha HS5s or something like
Mhm.
small, cheap, gets the job done. It's fine. And like some sort of cheap condenser mic, your DAW, of course. Well, that's like an instrument itself. That's
Mhm.
you gotta. Let's be honest. Like most people are stealing FL Studio and Ableton.
Yeah.
I stole Ableton. Did not pay for that shit. Um, I mean that's like pretty much as minimal as you can get nowadays, and still you can still make a record with that easily.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's.
So beginning wise, what should I want to get into sound engineering? What is the first purchases I need to make? I know you
Um,
kind of just like said it, but like so you said Scarlett, condenser
well,
mic.
not quite,
Okay.
because that was Scarlet days was like I would say 5-10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It had such a stranglehold on the consumer market. A lot of companies now are making their own version of the Scarlet that's like, under 300. You're not gonna go broke from that, which like thank God, because Scarlets are like they're very mid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They sound really funny. I think it's okay though. We all been there.
I'm still there, Loki.
That's okay. I mean, like it sounds great, dude. These mics sound fantastic. I would say nowadays, like every time a lot of people do ask me, like a lot of DIY artists, they want to do stuff at home, right? They'll cut like drums, maybe vocals at a studio, but like a lot of the other stuff is either production or a lot of stuff you can do at home now, which is good and bad depending on how you look at it.
Good and
Um,
bad in what ways?
I'd say it's good for just like creatives that you don't have to, drop $1,000 to go to a studio for a day and get your demo done. On the other hand, I would love to work with you in the studio and support myself as well.
Yeah.
It's okay though. But a lot of people ask me for like gear recs at this point, and like I recommend one of like UAD's got a small interface now. They got like 4 of them. The Volts that like they're cool. That company's great. Like their qualities, it's always been top notch from them.
Yeah.
So from what I've heard, they're good. There's Arturia's got little ones now. I would say just get any one of those. Get whatever is just enough to fit your needs. Like obviously you don't need like 8 inputs if you're like a singer songwriter at home with an acoustic or like a piano. So just worry about that for now. Get a good pair of speakers, decent mic. You need to get like gear wise, because it really doesn't all. None of it matters. It's all just like. I feel like it matters. It's fun though. It's fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't make a huge difference. And just get stuff that makes you feel good, that makes you feel like a star. I think that's important.
What do you feel made your ears start to progress? Because I feel like when you get into sound engineering, right, and even like some of the things we did in school, like we would do the what was it, golden ears,
Yeah.
golden ears, right? And it was it's actually super interesting, like going through that, because I mean, like I don't know about you, but like we'd be listening to this and actually being able to differentiate between frequencies and like how that applies to what we do. How would you say like do you feel like your ears have definitely improved since like when you started, and if so, like how do you feel it's improved?
Yeah, it's like obviously get better every day. Thank God. It's like it's a slow process, man. Really it's only like year for me. It's year one of trying to do this like for real. Before that, I was like in school, kind of doing it here and there. Um, but a lot. I feel like a lot of stuff frequency wise, like I'm learning, is just from like doing more mixes. The more you mix, the more you realize it's like, oh, okay, this is where like 100 fits. Like this is what it feels like. If you go through with like, you can go through with the stock EQ2 or like Pro Q3. You ever use that one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can like isolate the band. It's just cool to like do that and sweep through the whole spectrum and like on just any song you can do anything. You can do like noise or something and just like learn how that area feels, right? In your room, on your speakers, on your setup, and just like understand how that translates to the room. That stuff's kind of important. It's constantly like it's a learning experience always. There's always like I'll mix something and we'll release it and I'll listen to it on Spotify and compare it to other stuff. I'm always comparing, like how's this newest record sounding and like am I getting close? Did I kind of miss the mark? Like what's going on here? So doing that, that's a learning experience in itself, right? You can go in and like listen and say, oh, okay, like this could have used a little bit more low end. This could have used like the mids are a little weird here. Like next time, let me compensate and push it a little more and see how that improves, stuff like that.
We've been talking a lot about sound engineering, and although I love, I could go to the ends of the days about this. I kind of want to know a little bit more about like what you do outside of it.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. That's another thing that like I try to strive for too. Just as like this is a much broader like life thing, but I think life is about balance. And if I dedicate myself 24/7 just to like mixing, engineering and stuff, you get burnt out very fast. And I have burnt out very fast. So that is a discipline to work on, is finding your other outlets that also make you happy along with what you do for a career. So besides music, I like being outdoors a lot. Do a lot of hiking when it's warm. I love being in nature.
Where do you have any places in Jersey that you hike a lot?
Oh, dude, yeah, like Palisades, the ones I was talking about, like 15 minutes from me.
Yeah,
it's just like a giant cliff, and you can walk down it. They're intense because like you're going vertical up and down. Mm-hmm. There's some like normal ones though that are like flat ground, but it's beautiful. You're looking just right out over the Hudson River towards like Yonkers and Irvington.
You know what? I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of like do you start at kind of like a docking area almost?
Yeah, there's a couple docks.
Yeah,
on there,
there's a couple docks.
You climb up.
Yeah, you climb up and then you come all the way back down and
by
it
the
brings
bridge.
you down. Yeah,
it's right by the bridge. Yeah, that whole area full of hiking trails. Stuff out in like up in Harriman in New York State.
Harriman State Park is so great,
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I've hiked at Sam's Point, New York years ago. That one was really intense. Very, very long.
How long?
I don't know how many miles, but like me and my friends did it one winter. So like daylight was already short as it was. And we got like 2.5 hours deep and I realized like, oh shit, the sun's going down. And like we're not even close. So we had to like hightail it back the way we came. We're rushing through like the wilderness in like the snow and slush and stuff.
Ooh,
it was brutal.
That is brutal.
But it was beautiful. There's like, it starts at like, there's this beautiful lookout. It's the most beautiful like lookout I've ever seen in my life. Not that I've seen a lot, but it was like breathtaking. So you start there, you keep walking, you get like 2 hours deep, and there's this giant cliff with a waterfall. It's like, I swear, it's like not on Earth anymore. Because we did that in March, so like all the trees and stuff were dead. But for whatever reason, right around the waterfall, like there was foliage. There was snow and foliage. I don't know how that's possible, but like plants were alive there, and it's like walking through a portal, man. It was incredible. Up in Ringwood, the state park, the botanical garden.
I don't think I've ever been there.
Oh my god, it's like, dude, you should have gone in May. Like when everything's blooming, it's ridiculous. It's just this like giant mansion on this old property that they've turned into a giant garden. There's a bunch of bushes and flowers and big open fields. Dude, it was fantastic. So, I mean, hiking. try to like shoot film photography sometimes, like as a
Word.
hobby.
Oh
Yeah,
man, I love,
I'm
bro.
not
Photography is one of my favorite.
not
things
that good
to
at it, and like I just got like a couple point and shoots, but I just a lot of times like if I'm gonna do something, I'll just take the camera with me, and then sometimes you just see something, take a photo, develop it. A lot of times it doesn't look that good. Sometimes it does though, so that's okay. I'll watch a lot of movies and try to do some like a little bit of skateboarding here and there, which I'm not good at. It's mostly just street skating.
Yeah,
but I
dude.
like getting out and just like the feeling of just moving very fast is like so. Everybody loves
It's
it.
exhilarating, dude.
It's so cool. Man.
I even in my little hoopty Honda, bro. Like even when I'm hitting like 90s, going down 80, like it feels great.
That's the thing. I just hate driving though.
Oh, you don't fuck with driving?
It sucks, man. It's such a chore.
I'm weird because when I first like got my license, or even when I first got my permit, like it just felt like freedom to me, And it was I weirdly fell in love with it. And then the only thing I can't fuck with now, I don't mind doing like 8-hour, 10-hour drives. Like I'm fucking weird like that. But I can't do traffic.
That's
Traffic.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah,
That's
traffic is like the fucking worst.
It's like you said. Yeah, when you're like 17, you get it. It's really exciting. I think for me, in like high school and college, I was working delivery jobs.
Word.
So I was getting so much more road time than like the average 17-year-old. And it got really old really fast.
No, I completely get that. I completely get that. I used to deliver for Postmates. And I actually, when I stopped, I told myself I would never work a job like that again because it made me start to resent driving.
Yeah, look where I am now. Like I'm never gonna like it again. It's just like
Oh, fuck.
it's brutal, man. And it's really just traffic. Yeah, we live in like such a cramped area that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of places too. Like traffic is never fun, but here it just happens so much, and it's a bummer, man.
It's funny. As a sound engineer and as somebody who is from Jersey as well, I talk to a lot of people about the struggles of being an artist in Jersey and the struggles of having places to perform. And I guess it's less with people who are more into rock, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's some people like, especially for hip hop artists, it's super difficult to like be in a place where like you have somewhere to perform. And I just feel like there's not a lot of love in Jersey. Like, do you have any like thoughts on that?
Not a lot, just because like I've been out of the gigging scene for so long. Like I haven't played a show since February of 2020. So I'm like so out of the loop with that stuff. Like I do go to local shows. Like a lot of people I work with, if they have a show, like I'll turn up for it, because you gotta go. I gotta support my boys. They're supporting me by working with me, and I want to pay that back somehow. But I don't really know. I mean, like obviously it got really weird the past couple of years trying to play, where like so many people are just like, I'm gonna play at this tiny little shack where we can only have 10 people in attendance, and it's like, that's tough, man. That is really tough. But I think like community wise, I've never had, well, not never, but like most of the time it's like I've never had problems with the other bands. I've met a lot of like great people that I'm still friends with now. Like I still see them around. Like I see them post like, I'm gonna play here, here, and here, and then they're playing with this other band that I know, and they're playing with this other band I know. It's beautiful, man. It's a great sense of community.
Have you ever traveled to any other parts of the country?
A little bit. I'm not a big traveler. I've done like East Coast, Montreal, Jamaica.
You've been to Jamaica?
Yeah.
That's sick.
It's like really,
You're
yeah.
talking about like all these places. East Coast, Montreal, Jamaica. How was Jamaica?
I was like 12 or 13, so like
12
I don't
or
really
13,
remember
Jamaica?
much. Yeah, I was like a kid, but it was like,
Where
I
was
mean, it's pretty, I guess.
where was like the most recent place that you traveled to?
Traveled to, I was just I did like a month trip to Brooklyn this past month. So
How was that, dude?
It was kind of crazy. It was cool, man.
What made you go out there?
Me and 3 of my friends, we all just like kind of jokingly one day said like, what if it started as LA. We're like, what if we got an Airbnb for 2 weeks in LA?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of hard to do. So we said, what if we did a month in Brooklyn now? So yeah, we just like posted up in this dude's apartment. We took all our gear out there. They all do the same type of stuff. They're producers, songwriters. So we just like invaded this living space with like cables and computers and stuff and guitars, and we just we just like hung there for a month. We made some stuff, tried to went to some shows, tried to meet some people. It was a great experience. Yeah.
Word. So
Yeah.
like, what was the like biggest thing that you learned from like doing this?
Doing that was, I mean, really the biggest takeaway was like, because we're all from Dumont, we're all from the same exact suburb, growing up pretty much the same circumstances of like this very small, close knit town, and we wanted to just see like, let's just go there for a month and just see what happens. Let's test drive it and see if we can rock with this. So that was kind of the goal. Is just like let's pretend we live here for a bit. So learning wise, like just I like much better like understand the culture of like that part of New York. I didn't really go to Brooklyn that much. We were in like Williamsburg, not very deep, but I like only went there once in a while. So like really being there and just kind of like throwing yourself right into that sort of like environment was very interesting.
How was the environment different from what you know?
This like stuff's always happening, man. You know, you walk 5 minutes down the street and there's a bunch of restaurants, a bunch of bars, a bunch of clubs, a bunch of like there's like a jazz club there. There was like a bunch of thrift stores, and there's just a billion people walking around, which is like so very different from Dumont. Like the craziest thing to me was like, I mean like people think of like New Yorkers and them just being like very in your face and like right.
Mm-hmm.
The people out there were like so much infinitely nicer than the people in Jersey, which blew me away. Specifically in that part, at least. I'd walk into a store and like get greeted with like a hello and a smile every time.
Mm-hmm.
It really threw me off because I'm like not, my brain is not wired to do that. You know, you go into like defense mode every time you go into Walmart. Like, so
Yeah, people from Jersey could be pieces of shit sometimes, but
people are mean out here. But I'm so used to it that it's just the culture here, and I kind of like it. It's like fun.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, I've said it many times before, and I've had some times on the podcast where I've blown up a little bit. I know there's this clip I released from the first podcast from this June in Jersey project, where I'm just like, what did I say? I was like, yo, if you're from Florida, you fucking suck at driving. I was like, fuck that. Like, I was like, fuck y'all.
Yeah,
because honestly, if you've ever been, don't ever drive in Florida.
I've been to Florida, but I was 6, so if I drove, it would have been very illegal.
I mean, fuck, you know, just if there was a story like that, it would happen in Florida as well, because Florida has just, like, the crazy.
It's not Florida
shit.
man anymore. It's Florida kid now.
But you know, like driving down there was just fucking sucks, bro. Like there, we have rules, right? Rules for driving in Jersey, right? You in the left lane?
No, there's not.
Like, get the fuck out of the way. I mean, like, I feel like everybody in Jersey feels like they know how to drive better than everybody else, and that's kind of like the attitude you get.
Yeah.
You know, especially when it comes to like road rage. I mean, I don't really get angry on the road like that anymore.
Bro.
Like, you got some road rage issues?
I mean, I don't like driving, man. It puts me in a bad mood.
Damn.
I get a little salty, but like if like we're driving down Route 208 and you do something stupid in front of me that's gonna endanger my life and yours too and everyone around you, I don't have patience for that. Like I'm heavy-handed on the horn, man. I'm not afraid to like. I just growing up driving in Jersey, it's what happens, man. Yeah, I don't remember Florida drivers, but Florida's a weird vibe, man.
Weird.
It's like, I don't know. It's like I get a weird aura from Florida. So I think my least favorite drivers so far, Connecticut drivers.
Yeah, have you been up to Connecticut?
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Do you have any family out there? Or any reason you be out
not
there?
really. I used to travel to Boston a lot once in a while.
Oh, word. Why?
I got a friend up there, so
Word.
she went to school there. She lives up there now. So a lot of times, like me and my friends will go up to visit. And by doing so, you usually have to drive through Connecticut. So I've done a lot of commuting through it, and I've seen a lot of people going like 60 in the left lane for hours. And like it's a 2-lane highway, you know, you just can't move and you're just stuck. Then my sister goes to UConn up there now. So especially this past year between like school visits and move-in day and just like visiting for stuff. Like I was going up into Connecticut a lot. And I was like, man, It's a weird place. It's
Yeah,
really
it is a weird
liminal.
place.
It's like not. It's not New York. It's not Boston. It's the weird in between.
Yeah, I've actually been to Connecticut a couple of times because I actually have some family that's out there
Yeah.
that's living out in Connecticut, and there's just nothing to fucking do there,
It's
dude.
all like strip malls. It's
Mhm.
really bleak, man.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's like,
But like heading up more into like Boston, Maine, like that's like
awesome.
there's some places like I definitely want to like take more time into like getting into, get to know. Like I actually been big traveling like recently.
That's so good, man.
Yeah, because I feel like this is the age to do it, and I feel like when you when you get to meet more people, like I actually shot 2 podcasts out in California early this year. I shot one in San Francisco and I shot one in LA. Well, Oxnard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and like getting to see the different perspectives of how people work out there, the cultures, and bringing it back here to like Jersey, I feel like is super important, especially when you're growing and learning, and like the more people you get to meet, I think especially in this industry, like we'll just open up your perspectives into like I guess people's egos and stuff. I'm actually really big on that. I'm actually really big on like not necessarily me trying to be humble, but trying to see the bigger picture behind who a person is. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you meet someone and they're like, "Oh, yo, I'm the shit, yo. I'm this engineer who's crazy, or I'm this artist who like, like I'm the next big thing." And like, even for the podcast, I've had some times where people hit me up and then they're like, "I need to be on your show," and I'd be like, why?" Like I have no problem. Like I'm never like mean or anything. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? He's like, nah, you don't understand. I'm gonna change your life by me being on there. And I'm just like, honestly, I mean,
Okay.
I'm in the position where I'm like, well, shit, man, I hope you do, but like,
Yeah.
and then they'll come on, and then you'll be like, word. I mean, that was fun.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They're like, no, you don't understand. 1,000,000+ views. I got you, man. And I'm just like, you ever have any artists who come in like that?
Not yet. No.
Not yet.
I'm like very fortunate. Like everyone I've worked with is like pretty much very down to earth. It's a lot of humble people. I have not hit like a real ego yet. It'll come one day. We'll find it.
Word. Do you have any favorite thing that you have about Jersey?
Very generally,
Yeah.
like just the energy of like North Jersey is very funny to me. I'm very jaded to it because it's been so long, and like I don't even like see it until I go to somewhere like Connecticut or like somewhere out in Brooklyn, and then it's like, oh, like this is different here. Same thing with like Connecticut. I remember like one of the last times I went up, like I went into a coffee shop and the dude just smiled at me and said, "What can I get you?" And I was so confused. Where like, I kind of dig that vibe of Jersey where it's like I need to be a little bit mean to everyone at all times until like, oh, I know you now. Like we can be normal. We can actually be humans again. It's I don't know if it's a good thing to like have that sort of like outside persona. I think it's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
kind
like-
of just like
it's
feeling
really
people's vibes,
interesting,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? I definitely get that because some people could just be fucking rude as shit. And like actually, even around here, there's this little shop around the corner over here in the beginning of Boonton, and it's like I don't know how you call it. It's like a lady running her shit out of some trailer and in front of some like construction company over here. They sell great food. Shout out to them. But like the lady was just so fucking rude to me, like for no reason. She served like great food, but she was just like, "What do you want?" And I was like, and I like I was just looking at the menu and I was like, "Damn, you see me looking at the menu. I didn't make a
Yeah.
decision yet." And she's like, "Let's go, let's go." And it wasn't even like there was a line. It was just me. I was like, "Damn,
Yeah,
bitch, I'm your only customer. Be nice."
It's the type of like attitude here that you just gotta. It doesn't even phase me anymore. If you're gonna like throw that at me, I'm just gonna throw it back.
But there's some people who could be like who are really nice. There's some stores who like you walk in there and they're just like fucking great. Kyle, we're coming pretty close to the end of the podcast, but I still have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
So, one thing that I was really thinking about is usually where I ask people at the end of the podcast. Did you ever have any points in your journey where you just felt like it wasn't going to work out?
Yeah, like a million of them.
How do you deal with those feelings?
Best way I've learned to deal with it, it usually stems from like it'd be some sort of burnout or like so I'm either like my work-life balance is not healthy at all, or just the type of work that's coming in is like not what I want to do in that moment. And there's some deal of like sometimes you gotta edit this massive session that's got a bunch of stuff you gotta nudge and stuff. it's not like the most fun thing in the world, but like it has to get done. A lot of times when it comes to like burnout though, I find that like just drop what you're doing, step away for a bit, take a day, and like do the other things that like I find enjoyment in. So like I've gotten really burnt out, and I'll go sit in the park, and I'll just sit there. I won't do anything. I just sat there like under a tree, and I just kind of like took in the air for a sec. I just stepped back for a couple days. Because like I mean the worst thing you can do at that point is like really get hard on yourself, and you just keep digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So, yeah, finding a better balance between your work and your own happiness that helps like a ton.
Word.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, like when stuff goes wrong, it's gonna go wrong, especially in the beginning. It happens, right? And you just gotta keep powering through it, man.
For sure. And my second and last question for you: if you could talk to yourself at your lowest point within that process of where you feel like it's not going to work out, what advice would you give to yourself?
I say like the one thing that like I keep realizing about this type of thing is that it's so cyclical, and you'll have periods of I mean like just quite generally like what goes down must come back up. I'm like firm believer in that. So when like things get real bad, just like hang tight, hang on to the ship. You're gonna get out of the storm. I don't know when, but it's gonna happen where like you'll go from this business is really slow right now, and it's like, oh, like what am I gonna do now? Like it's over, and then you'll have like 3 people hit you up the same day. I've had that where just out of nowhere, the emails come in. It's like, can you do this, this, and that? And I'm like, we're back. It's just yeah, man.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate you for coming on, dude. I felt like I learned so much, and I'm so glad we finally get to catch up again,
It's
bro.
so good, man.
We don't see each other enough, man.
We should. I'm gonna be around more.
When you want to go hiking at any point, bro, let me know, because
Yo.
I am always 1000% down.
We
I
gotta
actually
do it.
just did a Stairway to Heaven recently.
Where's that?
Stairway to Heaven is kind of like on the way to Mountain Creek.
Where's that? Like,
Oh, dude. Oh,
is that New York?
No. It's
Pennsylvania.
it's Jersey. It's fucking somewhere, bro. I don't
Whatever.
fucking know. We'll
I'll
talk
look it
after.
up,
We'll talk
yeah.
after. But Kyle, let the people know where they can find you, socials, anything, and any shout outs that you want to do.
Oh yeah, you can find me on Instagram at kyle.online. That's my main hub for connecting with all the artists and other people in my life. I have a website it's not really a company yet, but I have it's called modernracketaudio.com. You can book through there, check out my portfolio, submit any sort of questions. Just hit me up. I want to make a lot more records this year, so I would love to work with a lot of new people. Yeah.
Sick, dude. And guys, y'all already know the business. Ayoo Chill Podcast on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Anywhere you find podcasts, you can find our podcast. And yeah, bro, that's pretty much it. Let's get the fuck
Should we
out.
say it together?
What? Ayoo Chill?
Yeah. Ready?
Sure, bro. Yeah,
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Ayoo Chill! Fuck yeah, dude.
All right, that's
Let's
cool.
get out of here. Sick, dude. Whew. How was it for you, man?
That was so much fun, dude.